Phil, into 2013, what are the challenges for the Conservative group in Thurrock in 2013?
Well, I suppose in many ways the challenges that we face are exactly the same challenges as any opposition group. On the one hand, our role as an opposition is to scrutinise, to hold to account, to make sure that decisions are looked at properly, to be advocates for our local residents, and that's exactly what we intend to do. On the other hand, I've always had a problem with the style of opposition, which just says we're going to criticise everything on principle because we're the opposition, so we just say no to everything. And actually, I feel that our long-term credibility does depend on our ability to offer positive alternatives and to come up with things saying, actually, have you considered doing it this way? Have you looked at this as an option? As well as being critical of what the administration are proposing. So I think to be a successful opposition we need to balance those two things. I think residents are expecting us to scrutinise and hold to account, but they also are looking to us to offer positive alternatives, and that's what we intend to do.
So we have the budget in discussion at the moment, that's coming up. Are there anything that you are really concerned about in respect of the budget for Thurrock in 2013-14?
Well, clearly we all know the budget's going to be tight, and that means there's going to be less room for error, less wiggle room than perhaps there's been in the past. I think when I look back on previous budgets that I've been involved as a councillor, I think sometimes elected members have been guilty of being sidelined into examining minutiae, perhaps the politically controversial but financially very small points. I remember the first budget I was involved in, we had a debate over the locking of parks. Now that was very important to local residents. It was worth about £5,000 or £10,000 in total. Now in a general budget of 130 million, a total budget of around 400 million. Looking back, I do not believe that £5,000 or £10,000 is not something which could have been found. So in reality, were we being distracted into arguing about a small political point, while the really large points, the millions of points, the millions of pounds, if you like, got left to just carry on through. So I think what we're going to be doing is asking to look not just at the little points of we intend to cut that, we intend to increase that, but actually taking what's called a zero-base approach and saying let's look at the whole of what the council's spending, and as well as just looking at the little points that have been offered before us for consideration, look at the whole of what we're doing and saying, are we getting value for money this, or even do we need to completely rethink how we're doing things in some areas such as education?
I get the impression that John Kent is saying you're welcome into the body of the kirk, as they say, to come and discuss things. But is that just lip service, do you feel? Do you really feel you're included in these discussions?
I mean, clearly as an opposition we're never going to get the full opportunity that the administration has to shape their budget. It is their budget, and ultimately local people are going to hold them accountable for that. At the same time, we are being offered opportunities to get involved in that process, both of scrutinising what's being proposed and of offering alternatives, and we're going to take full advantage of that. We're not just going to take our ball home and say forget it, we're going to just criticise what you do. We are actually going to get involved in the scrutiny process, and we are actually going to make sure that we do bring our own alternatives in during that process as well. So this year, rather than leaving everything till the last minute, if you like, we are definitely going to be taking the opportunity to offer some of our ideas forwards, to get council officers to work on the detail of, well, exactly what would that cost and how would that work in practice, so that when we come to the budget night itself, we can have a sensible debate about things that we know have been looked at and costed properly in advance.
But it's going to be a sensible debate, but you take your team don't take any prisoners, do you? You do look at people who stand up with people like Rob Gledhill, Barry Johnson, Mark Cogswell, Shane Hebb. They'll stand up and shoot from the hip, won't you?
Yeah, and I think people expect that of them. At the end of the day, you only get involved in local politics because you're passionate about things and you believe in things, and you want to do the best for local people and local residents. And politics is a game where if you don't stand up and make your voice heard, then at the end of the day, someone else will always make their voice heard. So I've got no problem with people being passionate and with people communicating their arguments forcefully. I think what I would say, and what I do demand of Conservative councillors, is that they do make sure they've got their facts right, they do tell the truth, and that we do strike this balance between, on the one hand, being robust in our attacks, but on the other hand, making sure that we can show we do have something positive to offer as well.
Away from the budget for a second, you don't buy, or rather, do you buy the shared services of Barking and Dagenham? It looks like you have really grave doubts about it, but is your message, your concern really getting through?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were very pleased that we managed to win an important vote in the council chamber, which meant that we are not now going to be going full steam ahead with a shared management team with Barking and Dagenham. I mean, to me, the principle is very simple. What was on offer in terms of if we went to a fully shared management with Barking and Dagenham Council, so all of our senior management team being shared with them, that might have achieved savings for us perhaps of the order of 5 to 10% of what we need to achieve in total as a council, and we would have diluted by half the management effort that we required to find the remaining 90%. So what we feel is that at a time when we need to make deep structural changes to some of the council's services, it's not the right time to effectively be halving the management attention by splitting them across two authorities. We're sure that there are some shared services savings which can be made. So for example, we're already sharing a legal team with Barking and Dagenham. We were happy to stick our hands up and vote for that to continue because it makes sense. We're going to be sharing a Director of Public Health with Southend Council. We believe that makes sense as well, and we're supporting that. So we're sure those opportunities are out there. Some of these corporate functions, they look almost exactly the same, whether you're serving one council, two councils or three councils. But the idea of moving to what was effectively a fully shared management team at a time when, you know, most people in Thurrock don't want to feel that we're becoming part of London. They do want to feel that the council is focusing its full attentions on Thurrock at the moment, and just we felt that in losing that management focus we'd have been losing more than we were gaining.
In our interviews with Chief Executive and the leader of the council, great enthusiasm for, they feel, not only the vision of Thurrock, Purfleet, Lakeside, DP World, but feel things are moving now. Do you share that same enthusiasm in 2013, or do you have any slight concerns?
I mean, clearly we have opportunities here in Thurrock that other places in the country simply don't have. And, you know, we've talked a little bit about the pressures there are on government finances, the fact that we need to get out of this borrow and spend culture, we need to bring the debt down. That means that what local councils can do is going to be under pressure, and we all know that. Now, there are some parts of the country where that's just the whole story. Here in Thurrock, there are some really positive growth stories to counteract that. So you've got DP World just up the road from here. You know, first boat has already docked, albeit it was only delivering crane parts. You know, the first commercial boats are going to be docking by the end of this year. We've got the expansion of Lakeside. You know, if people thought Lakeside was going to go downhill because places like Westfield coming online, well, you know, clearly that's not the case. They're making the investment to keep themselves at the top of their game in terms of retail. That means new jobs in Thurrock, it means new investment in Thurrock, it means new opportunities, and those are advantages that other places in the country simply don't have. We've got some of the biggest investment agendas in the country here, and, you know, we have to recognise it is a mixed story here in Thurrock, and we've got to play our strengths to their maximum benefit, and those are some of our strengths right now.
And you mentioned about the right skills. Do you feel the schools and the colleges are in the right place to deliver these skills?
I think the schools and the colleges recognise that they're in a competitive environment and they cannot afford to stand still. I think we've all been very heartened by the positive progress that especially secondary schools in Thurrock have made over the last few years. Just a few weeks ago I was at the opening of the new sixth form centre here in Corringham at Gable Hall, and, you know, that is bringing a brilliant mix of, on the one hand, academic qualifications so that pupils can study to A-level standard and then go on to university right here in the town where they live. It's also got workshops, it's got vocational training to prepare people who perhaps aren't thinking about university, they don't think that's right for them, to prepare them for apprenticeships and more vocational careers. So they are putting in the investment, and they are clearly showing they take those challenges seriously, but no one's underestimating the fact that it's a competitive environment. It's no good Thurrock kids having an adequate opportunities or an adequate education. You need to be the best to compete and survive in the current environment.
And finally, what is it you enjoy most about what you do, and what do you still find very frustrating?
I mean, I've always been somebody who's taken a big involvement in the local community, and being a local councillor, you get a chance both to help individual people with their problems, but also to help people come together and solve their problems. And after this, I'm going straight off to meeting with a new Corringham Residents and Traders Association that's just formed, and they've got some really exciting ideas for what they want to do here in Corringham Town Centre. And more importantly, you know, that hasn't been initiated by councillors in the main. You know, they've involved us in the process, but they've said, we're people who live in this town centre, we're people who work and have businesses in this town centre. We want to come together and do something positive, whether that's about events, whether that's about working out how we respond positively to the ideas around Corringham Market rather than just opposing things the whole time. You know, exactly the kind of approach I talked about earlier. I'm seeing local people coming together and do those things. That really excites me. What frustrates me, I get frustrated when it seems like the council takes an approach of, for every question that's asked, trying to work out how we can say no to it. I think that there is this stereotype of council bureaucracy and how it works. Like all stereotypes, it's not entirely true, but like all stereotypes, there is a grain of truth within it. And I think we really need, as a local council, to start thinking, how can we react more positively and say yes more times to good ideas that local people come up with? Yeah, that frustrates me. And I guess some of the politics frustrates me. You know, in the end, I believe in two-party politics. I believe in opposition. I think if you think that the way the two parties go at each other you don't like, then just go and live in a one-party state for a while, and you'll soon change your mind. But at the same time, you know, I'm naturally an encourager. I'm being put in a position where I have to be critiquing and criticising the whole time. That doesn't always fit naturally with my personality, but I recognise it's the role I'm in right now, and I'm committed to do it robustly and effectively.
Phil, thank you.